Hey guys, welcome to Lunch and Learn. I'm so excited that you guys are joining us here on your lunch break. If you're new to this series, I'm Jamie Starcevich, the designer behind Spruce Road Design. I have a weekly Lunch and Learn series. There's just 2 more episodes left after this one for this season. And today we're lucky to have Meg join us from Meg Summerfield Creative. And I've had the pleasure of working with Meg on a couple client projects, and she's been wonderful to work with. She really knows Squarespace. I've been super impressed by her development knowledge. So we're going to have her teach us a few CSS tricks. So before we get started, I want to let you guys know, you can probably already see it below this video. There's a chat feature, or on the sidebar, there's the chat, and then below it is the questions. So if you have any questions about CSS, feel free to ask those there, and we'll get to those at the very end. I already see a few questions in there I know we won't be able to touch on. We're going to try to respect everybody's time, keep it under an hour, so we won't be touching on specific template features in Squarespace or anything like that, just keeping it basic about the CSS that anybody can apply to their Squarespace site. So I'm going to pass it on over to Meg to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Meg. Thanks for having me, Jamie. This is actually my lunch break, so in my office, in my full-time job. So I'm the creative brain behind Meg Summerfield, aka my own graphic design studio. And I got started in Squarespace about three years ago when it was back in the 5 platform, and have been using it ever since, and really got into CSS about a year ago on the new on 6 and then into 7 this past fall. Excited to share some sort of fun things that you can do on every template. And that way, anyone can take these ideas and sort of pass them on to all of your followers. We're going to go on a little bit of a tangent here and just make sure everyone knows what CSS is. So I guess if you compared website building to a house, that CSS is the interior designer's job and the HTML is the construction and general contractor's job. So, we're not going to be able to, make structural changes, but we're going to be able to change the experience of how things look on a sort of, bigger level, on a sort of experiential sort of design level. What I have sort of set up for you guys today is going to be a couple of small things, and we're going to just do a couple of small CSS things. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see, screen sharing, perfect. Okay, so here is my site, and you can see that I've got some different headers here, header 1, header 2, header 3, some body copy. And the main thing here is to understand, 1, how to inject custom CSS, 2, where it is and where to inject it for just one edit. So in your design panel, for anyone who hasn't seen Squarespace before, this is your main panel here. And your design panel here is actually going to have your style editor, which is actually creating CSS through this user interface, or you can inject custom CSS that overrides all of that CSS in the design panel. Now, anything that you write in the CSS here is going to override the regular design panel, meaning you might not be able to change something in the design panel once you've edited it here. Now, I have a ton in mine here because I have a custom font that I have embedded from typography.com on the cloud typography page. So that requires a lot of work. So there's a lot of custom CSS in my own site. First things first is you need to figure out what that you want to change in CSS. And the best place to do that is Chrome, period. You want to close out your design panel and keep your page full. And then you're going to select the area that you want to change and push inspect. And then you're going to see some craziness here. If this is the first time you've seen this panel, it's going to look a little bit scary to you. The main thing to understand here is that you're looking for CSS IDs. Now, in this one, we're looking for H2, which is right where that purple line is there, and before the hashtag YUI there, that is an H2, which means that it's the header 2 in our CSS. And you can sort of see the styles here. We have H2 font size 13 pixels. Now, this is something you can change within your design panel, but in order to change it on one page, which happens all the time, let's say you have a page for your prices and H2 doesn't work any longer. It's too big, it's too small, or you want to change it. When you go into your page, you can add a code block. I already put one in here for us here, code block. And you can edit the CSS directly in here. Now, this one is H2. Now you always need your bracket, and then this is your tag, your bracket, and you go into changing your CSS. Now, in order to change it, I highly suggest looking into whether it's lynda.com, w3schools.com, or codeschool.com. They all are going to be able to help you learn CSS and figure out what you can change. Within here, this is where you're going to change it for one page. So I've decided in here that header 2 is way too small, and I'm going to change it to 35 pixels. So there we go. You've got something that can actually stand out on the page, that on your rest of your pages, your H2 is going to stay that whatever you've decided it's going to be, whether it's 13 within your design tweaks panel or something else. And there we go. And let's see. Jamie, is there an error on the video?
Oh, no, I still see everything okay. Are you having trouble on your end?
No, I just see on my other computer, I see an error occurred. Maybe that's just my internet connection at work.
Let me check in the chat real quick.
Okay.
So when you added that code at the beginning, that's not actually where it says your actual text there. Is it before that block? Is that right?
It can be anywhere on the page. So as long as it's on this page, it's going to apply to anything that you see on this page. And that includes if you put it in a blog, the header of a blog on the sidebar, it's going to change anything on that blog, every single post. And that's, unfortunate in that you can't change it per one blog post, but you can change it for the blog versus someplace else on your page, or versus a regular page someplace else within your site. And so it's a per page type thing. It doesn't have to be above, but I like to sort of keep all my code above this section here.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. Yeah.
Yeah. That way you always know where it is, because it's very small and you have to go searching for it. So, Squarespace will help you write these things. They will go through and say, so we can write it again. So if you start to write style, the back bracket immediately is written for you. So that way you can just go in and then write H2, oh my goodness, H2. See, it gave me the red, it told me it was wrong. H2, font size 30px, and then a semicolon. Do this correctly here. And then the next one we can do color. Now let's do, there we go. It almost black. And, you know, it really does help you write all these different things. And another way of doing this is going to be, again, through Chrome. You can really take a look at what you're doing and how you're doing it without writing the actual code in there. So again, you're going to sort of scroll through here. Oh, look, this is the exact code that we just wrote. And so I can sort of play with it right within here without having to write it yet, and see what I think about multiple things at a time. So I can say, let's do text transform. So it's going to help you write it and figure out what you need. And I want lowercase. Yay. So then once I've figured it out in Chrome, I can take this and copy this section here and then copy this here. And sometimes these are really long, so you want to copy it from Chrome in order to do that. So that's sort of an easy H2 change for one page. And in that way you can sort of change something and still use dynamic text editor. So if you notice here that this is still normal text, you can still change it to H1, you can still change it to H2. I've just defined what H2 is on this page to be something specific other than everywhere else on the site. Then from here, you can do a little bit more complex ones. For example, I have down here an image. So here's my gray image. Isn't that nice? And the caption here is pretty boring. This is your standard gray background. It's going to pull in the body copy, but smaller into the caption. And that's not what I want. I want it to look really pretty. So you can go in here and go to inspect. And we're going to find what this is. So it is SQS block image layout caption overlay. Okay. That sounds about right. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. We can see the color. Okay, that looks like the right color. You can sort of figure out whether it's the right thing or not based off of certain things like the color for people who are new. So I can copy this. We just want this one here. See the part that's in black. And we can go into our custom CSS panel and paste it in.
And this is on the entire site, right? Globally?
This is the entire site. This is the global section. Yep. And I'm going to see if this works. And we're going to do
there it is.
There's a white background. You could also potentially pull in something nice and bright and any color you want. That's a hex. Yay. And then from here, you can then also pull in all sorts of other things. So for let's do another one. And I'm actually going to delete this section. And I think that this is going to work. Maybe not. Let me see.
I think it did. Try a little bit bigger and see if it's more noticeable.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. And then we're going to do, there we go. So you can really sort of figure out what everything is using the CSS panel. Now, I happen to know that this was just adding in the P here. What that was is then I've selected the box around it by finding what the box was in the Chrome panel, the developer panel, and then now we're selecting the text that's within that panel. So that I've added this P so it knows that I'm looking at the box within this panel that has been labeled body copy. And that sometimes might be easier to figure out by selecting just the text and going to inspect. And then you'll be able to see that, this is exactly here, 30 pixels white, and here's your content here. You'll be able to copy and paste this directly into your CSS panel. And so there's sort of like editing something that you sort of have within your entire page. Again, you can inject this the same way into your custom code panel right in here. It's the same exact thing, and it'll just be on this one page. You can change up all sorts of different stuff in here and make it really branded versus the gray background that is all the standard in Squarespace. And then you got to sort of think outside the box a little bit. One thing that really helps when it comes to complex sites is adding your own CSS labels. And that's where sort of you need to sort of think a little bit outside the box, not too far though. So for example, a lot of photographers go through a shoot, let's say a styled shoot, and they have, you know, a photographer and a wedding planner and a florist and the wedding gown you need to show all the vendors for, and you want that header 1 doesn't work, header 2 doesn't work, header 3 doesn't work, now does body copy, but you're going to use it on every single blog post. So you need to, instead of, you know, creating a, you know, method of doing it within those 4 there, you can create another version for it to work everywhere on your site. And that's where writing your own CSS label comes into play. So this I've labeled H4, but it could be vendor, right? It could be anything you want it to be. You've already noticed that this here is going to be my H4. And this just allows you to take everything to the next level. I've decided it's going to be Brandon here. I've got some letter spacing and some color and all sorts of different things, you know, some different font sizes and font weights. Now, this looks pretty plain. It doesn't really look like you have done anything. However, you can do a lot more with this than just meets the eye in terms of text and copy. Let's give it a border. Let's make it a dashed. There we go, dashed border. Let's make it 1 px, not 2. Let's do 2. And that color is fine, nice bright pink. But now it looks silly because it's up against the edge. So let's do text align. Center. And let's add some padding in there.
So if you aren't familiar with what these terms are, Meg mentioned, is it W3 schools?
W3 schools is going to be your best place to learn these things and to just figure out like the basic terminology for these. The other place to learn is just by sort of reading what's in your Chrome developer. So, you know, inspect what's there. What is it already using? It sort of has that ability to look things up as you go, which is nice. We're going to save that so I don't lose it. So again, we can sit in here and, you know, here's what we were doing, right? Here's our H4, here's our font family, and you know, clearly this isn't working, so we're going to do this. And we're going to do this. Make that work. Oh, no, it's not going to work for us today.
That's okay. A lot of this is always trial and error.
And when you want it to work, it's not going to work for you. And you know, these are things that you can easily do to allow your you can look it up yourself and you can test it out within the Chrome developer. And that's why Chrome is the best way to learn CSS, to edit CSS, and then copy and paste it into your CSS panel. Like this is where you're going to figure it all out, because you're going to see what you're doing like in real time. And so, you know, you can look at, oh, it's font weight 300, but if I put in a new font weight line here, It's going to give me all these different options. Oh, maybe I just want bolder. Maybe I want, something else. Maybe I see there went bolder than what it was, but not all the way to completely bold. Doing it right within this panel here in Chrome in the developer panel is not only going to allow you to figure out what you're doing without actually writing it into the site, but help you learn CSS along the way. It's going to push in those values and show you what's available. That way you can learn that it's text transform. It sounds like a weird phrase, but it's going to bring it up for you when you put in text transform here. You write in text and you're like, I don't know what that other word was, but it started with a T. Well, it's going to bring it right up for you so you can learn it. And then it's going to tell you what all your options are. It's going to give you uppercase as a value, and it's going to show you how to do that. And that way you can really create things right within Chrome and copy and paste it back into your site without having to sort of test out your CSS within your actual site and potentially quote unquote break it, which is hard to do. But you can learn it within this panel, and that's the key, is learning it within the developer panel. So at this point, you can create this value, but how do you use it? So we've created H4 here, and it's not going to show up, unfortunately, within your dropdown. That's just not going to happen without the developer mode. But with the developer mode, again, you're going to have to use Markdown. And Markdown is, again, W3 Schools is going to teach you how to use Markdown as well. Markdown is going to be this second button here, this under basic, and it looks nice and simple. You can put in call to action. And then you're going to use tags. Now, tags are going to help you out immensely. And we have some alignment issues here. So I have 0 spacing on my site. But then you can, again, it's easy to add. It's not like you're adding a code block. It's just still a link here. And okay, so this is what your Markdown then looks like. I know it looks scary right now, but this is, it was pretty simple to do. It wrote it in there itself. You didn't have to write the Markdown for the link yourself. Squarespace will help you write these things. It knows you want to add more than what it already gave you to add. So then you have your own call to action button that you can do without writing CSS or writing code each time. So you can really add value beyond just what Squarespace has already given you as a toolbox. And this could be a call to action button. This could be a recipe, name. It could be all sorts of different things. You could actually, put a background image, and there are lots of different options for where this could go. But it's fun because, they really do allow you to overwrite whatever's in your system. So. Yeah.
And you can create whatever you want. Like you just named that H4, but
yeah,
you could just name whatever you want and call it later.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's really fun about it, is that it doesn't have to be just that. Where's my, so it can be something even beyond that. You can, how do I turn screen share off here? Let's see, let's find out.
There should be a button at the bottom of your screen. Maybe there we go. I think you got it. Yeah.
Now I just see visions of everything. Let's see if I can get it back. That's crazy.
You see that green button on the left? Yeah. There you go.
I usually use Skype for all of my client going back and forth. So excuse my Google Hangouts non-knowledge. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go and different things you can do. I have probably 6 or 7 custom ones built into a site I'm doing now. And it's just because in some places we need social media links for multiple people to be built in. That doesn't need to be, at size 15 or 14 or 13. It needs to be 7 and 8. So in order to, bring that down, we just tweak it just a little bit and, have, I think it's called vendor social. So you can, use it for all sorts of different types of purposes. And that allows you to be really creative.
Yeah. Let me check here. How do you style that button or call to action she just created? That's from Emma. And you guys, I'm going to include notes on the blog in the newsletter next week. So, or you can just rewatch this again.
Yep, and I also have an included H4 and another button as well, an actual button, a large button you can change to large, small, medium in the Squarespace mode that you'll get with a PDF as well.
Oh yeah, there's a bonus PDF at the end. So did you have any other kind of CSS tricks you wanted to go through? Otherwise, I have questions I can ask you.
Those are really the basics. Figuring out, you only want to use for CSS. My suggestions are not to write code, but to change the Squarespace things that exist in there already. That way you don't have to write anything for iPads, anything along those lines. All of those media things are built into those blocks that exist. And that way you're changing what's there and making it work for you instead of building it yourself. And you don't want to build it yourself unless you can write HTML and write JSON and write CSS from scratch before you jump into developer mode. It's pretty complicated.
I also wanted to mention that you have a new membership site coming out. We're not doing a full sales pitch or anything like that, but I know a lot of people would be interested, so it'd be a shame not to mention it. Would you just kind of briefly tell us what that is?
Yeah, it's called Squarespace Design Guild. It's squaredesignguild.com. And what is it? It's going to be really just a place for designers to come together and learn things in the back end, as well as showcase their own work in the front end and do workshops, teaching, and all sorts of different things on top of that. And so that allows us to come together as designers to make sure that our craft is the best it can be. And, simple things like how do you create a wireframe for a client without being able to, necessarily be able to duplicate like a PSD wireframe. What are the tricks of the trade, things along those lines in the back end for designers. And then in the front end, really being able to use that blog as a place to teach and a place to share and answer questions to the Squarespace community on a design level for brand designers and designers, not necessarily developers, but more on like a designer level.
Yeah, this will be great for anybody who uses it for themselves, Squarespace for themselves, but I would think especially for clients. It's mostly built around people who use Squarespace for their clients, and then on a little bit, it's going to be about teaching other people how to use it so if you happen to be very good, or you're a really good DIYer, you're here learning these things, it's still going to provide value to you on the blog site part of it as well. Yeah, well, I'm excited for that to open up. So we'll keep you guys updated. And when you download that free PDF from Meg, I'm sure you'll share information about when that launches as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping in the next sort of month or so. I have a business trip in the middle built in, but I'm gonna hopefully get launched before March.
Awesome. Well, do you mind if we dive into a few questions that we have here?
I'd answer some.
Okay. And like I mentioned before, some of these we're not going to touch on because we're focusing strictly on CSS. So let's see here. I don't think this is CSS. Feel free to just say, nope, not CSS.
Yeah, I can sort of answer any of those things.
Okay. I would love to know if you can add a custom Pinterest hover button. I know you can, but is that CSS?
You can. I've seen it done. I've done it myself. I don't like how it functions in the end. It pulls out not the the Pinterest sort of name that you've titled in an image in Squarespace, which everyone sort of has gotten to title their image knowing that that's what gets pulled. It starts to pull like the actual content from the blog post. And so I've sort of given up on that. I mean, in the end, yeah, it's a fun branding thing, but like, do people care? No. So, you know, I mean, your end client, the people who you want to pin your buttons, like the images on your site, like they don't actually, you know, they don't pay attention to those things. Us designers do, but you know, the end client has no idea whether it's a custom button or not.
I love that. I totally agree. Don't get hung up on those details.
Don't get hung up. It's not worth your time coding.
Okay, let's see here. It would be, I think we kind of went over this beforehand, but it would be lovely if you could cover styling sidebars using CSS. So can you just mention if you can or can't do that?
You can. Most of them are. It's not. You can't. It depends on the template whether or not you can directly interact with your sidebar. A lot of them, you're going to have to specifically style that page and know it's going to have to be on every blog page. There are a couple of templates that have the sidebar as a separate entity, but some of them, it's the way that the HTML is written and that the tag is here for the sidebar and the blog content is here, meaning the hierarchy reaches everything. I hope that makes sense. It's just the way the hierarchy is built into it, whether it's here or it's here. And if you're writing it and you're telling it that everything for the sidebar, right, is higher than the blog post, then everything from the sidebar is going to feed into your blog post.
Gotcha. Yeah. Basically, it's complicated.
Right. But it doesn't mean that you can't, create markdown for your sidebar and create your own custom CSS in that way. So maybe you create H1 sidebar and you use it in that way.
Okay. Let's see. This is just, I think this will be the last question that I see that's applicable to CSS. And it says, I'm hoping we can discuss making a recipe button that is compatible with SEO formatting. So you did touch on creating a button with CSS, but I'm not really sure.
You're probably referencing something that I use on my own blog. So I have a food blog as well. I think I probably do too many things. And I really, that's how I actually got started in Squarespace, was needing a job outside of my, I needed a creative outlet, and I started food blogging on Squarespace. And I needed a recipe section that was sort of defined it as the recipe on the blog versus just using regular text. And that is taking a twist on the menu block. And so in the code, it actually is going to, in the HTML, what it comes out as the recipes, it's telling, Google and whatnot that it is a menu. And that is something that, you might not want as a blogger, but you can use Google snippet recipes. And that's what I do after every single post. I've been telling people I'll post that for a long time. So maybe I'll do that this week. It's just a simple code that Google gives out that you can hide within Squarespace in order to sort of keep the SEO. And that happens with everything that you're changing. If you really want the SEO in there, you write it into your post. That's what I say. It's content, content, content. Mm-hmm. So make sure you're writing recipe, make sure you're writing ingredients, make sure you're writing, this is an incredible recipe for blah. The same things go with photographers, DIYers. You want to have your content being face forward and not necessarily every single block being SEO friendly, because it's going to change in a month and then your SEO is not going to be there.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great point. Keep it in your content for sure. Okay. We did have one last question, and this is a really broad question, but what's the best template? And maybe there's not, but what's the best template for Squarespace to use in starting a website? What's preferred template for start from customization purposes? So is there one that's better than the next for customizing CSS, or is this kind of all around the board?
They're all sort of different. When a client is says they have to have a sidebar, it's 5, because you have multiple different options of how to do layout with them once you start with the template. Because that way I can do a full header across the top, a sidebar, or you can have it side by side with your menu and your logo on one side. That's just the one that just has the most sort of flexibility within the formatting and a sidebar. And then other one is Pacific, because everything's based off of 5 or Pacific in the end. Those, in terms of the ones I find most value in. Obviously 5 doesn't have the index, and Pacific does, and so you can have that long scrolling page. And Pacific doesn't have a sidebar, but the more we say it, maybe they'll come out with a sidebar option and an index paging template.
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily one template that's perfect for starting from scratch, but that's a good way of answering it. Okay, I think that wraps up any of the questions related to CSS. I'm going to switch over here.
I can try other questions if you need me to.
I want to keep it just to CSS.
Sounds good.
So a lot of these are really kind of in-depth to specific templates. So I'm sure Meg will agree to just jump on to Squarespace site themselves and filter through those forums. I was just there this morning with a specific issue and found the result right there, already answered. I'm sure, Meg, you've done that as well. Is that right?
Yep. I mean, if you know Squarespace, you know who Jason Barone is, and he started out as just a designer who jumped into the forums and really became the guy who knew it all, because he was answering the questions and going in and finding out the answers. And you'll see his presence a lot on there. He started a Slack site that is Talk Squarespace, I think. There's a lot of different developers in there, but it's really broad. It can be, they'll answer any question you have in there as well. So if you can't find it on the answers, you can't get in touch with Squarespace for chat, then go to Talk Squarespace. And they will help you out there as well.
I've even tweeted to Squarespace before.
Oh yeah, tweeting works. Whenever there's a site problem, usually you can check Twitter and they're like, sorry, we're down.
Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us, Meg. We're so excited. I'm going to go back and definitely watch this again and reference that PDF that I'm excited to give to everybody that they can download from your site. I know this is so helpful just for me to see kind of the back end, someone else working and how they do it, and how easy it is that anybody can do this across all Squarespace sites. So thank you so much for your expertise and just joining us on your lunch break.
Thanks so much, Jamie. I really enjoyed everything. I know it went by really fast, so hopefully you can sort of take the video and sort of slow it down in parts and push pause and type in whatever I typed in. And the beginner sort of like sections of that code is in the PDF that we'll be providing.
All right. Thanks so much, Meg.
Bye.
Bye.